we just let this happen without even realizing that I couldn't have envisioned how bad things could get.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today, I have Michelle Darling from the Foothill Rounders. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, of course, today we're going to be listening to your song, Tear It Down. Without further ado, let's listen to the song.
These old walls are bone, the paint chipped and fading, loose boards in the floor. There's not much worth saving. The doors are all stuck, can't get them open. The windows are grimy, glass cracked and broken. Maybe it's time to tear it all down, build it again, up from the ground. Take better care of this old house that we all share. We neglected our work, now the ceiling is dropping, caving in, the foundation rotting, mildew and mold, roaches and maggots took over our home while we scrolled on our tablets. Maybe it's time to tear it all down, build it again, up from the ground. Maybe next time we'll take better care of this old house that we all share.
Welcome back. So, of course, my first and favorite question to always ask, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
Lyrics. Almost always lyrics for my songs.
For this particular song, what was the first line that you came up with, or was it starting at like the first line?
It started at the first line. It basically just rolled out of me as a full, complete song. I had an idea and I sat down and wrote it all in one sitting. We rewrote a couple of the lines. What usually happens is I'll write a song, kind of get it where I am not embarrassed to bring it to Dan, and then he irons out the parts that aren't quite as clear as they should be. Sometimes in my head, it all makes sense to me, but not necessarily to someone else. And this was one of the first songs that I remember taking to him, and I think he said, "This is the best song you've ever written so far."
When you write these words, were you thinking within a melody, or were you thinking like kind of in a like a poem-like structure, and then were you envisioning a verse and a chorus, or was it like just a straight right through and you thought, oh, you know what, this is the line that is the return to point that's like a chorus?
I think it is like a poem because I can kind of feel the beat as I'm writing the words. I don't know what the actual notes of the melody are going to be, but I do feel a da 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 da, like almost the drum beat in the background while I'm writing the poem. Like I can envision that's how you would read it if you were going to read it as a poem. I think that's how it works.
Well, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of things about songwriting in general that I couldn't even tell you how it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just it I don't know how it works. It just works, right? You had this piece, you had written a majority of it before the edits. When did you start incorporating like the guitar and the melody line? Or how was that accomplished, I guess, maybe?
I think this song might have been written before I started doing crazier things with melody, because I'm looking at this chord progression and it's very boring chord progression.
I think it works. Your style is like folk, and I think it also gets the title of folk is like because it's something that can be passed on to other people, and,
yes.
and the simplicity of folk, which doesn't mean that the song will ever be simple. It's just what is the simplicity of folk is the idea that it can be given to other people to pass on almost in like an oral tradition kind of way.
Yes.
So I appreciate the fact that it has that simple chord progression. I appreciate the fact that if it's a simple chord progression, that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's uninteresting, because the things that you can do within like the flourishes or the things that are almost the fills, should I say, in between the vocals. How did that kind of come about?
I'm not sure that I remember with this one.
So was this an earlier song, like back from 2020, or?
No, it is probably a year old now. I'm trying to remember when I was doing all this little production stuff, but we were already playing it live before that. I think what probably happened is I just sat down and understanding that I'm the lead guitarist. I am not very good at playing hard chords like bar chords or anything, so my songs tend to be in some key that doesn't have bar chords in it. That might involve a capo so that I can play everything in G or C or D. Like, I think the way it works is I start like just by playing a chord and singing some note that goes with that, and then play another chord in that key, and the melody just goes there, and then it just happens. It's one of the wonderful things about music is it's kind of magical in that I really don't know what I'm doing, but it just works.
Sure.
And
well, in a certain sense, you had described that you were picturing within the words a certain rhythm or like a drum beat, and that would kind of give you that guide of what kind of strumming pattern or whatever that you would want to have with it, or when you might want to change from from the G to the A minor, like there's a sense that you get with the rhythm of the words.
I will also say, when I bring these songs to Dan, I have like one way that I play everything. And so it really evolves into a real song once I bring it to Dan, because he's a really great rhythm guitarist and he puts all these different spins on what I start with, which is always very 1, 2, 3, 4, a very straightforward, no frills guitar pattern. And then he takes it and makes it into something more interesting. And then I put the little lead lines over it, which are usually just some kind of riff off the melody itself. I'm working on becoming better at more interesting lead lines. But what I really loved about this song was the lyrics, I think. And I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but this song has been covered by one of our friends at Open Mic, and he does punk stuff. And so he punkified this song, and it is so amazing. I got a video of it. And so I'm really proud of this song for that reason, that he liked it enough that he wanted to cover it. That's always the greatest honor, when somebody wants to cover one of your songs.
Do you want to say who it was, or we don't have to, but
I don't think you would mind. His name's Brian Patrick, and he's an awesome guitarist and vocalist and writes some of amazing music on his own and punkifies a lot of people's non-punk songs, and it just always works out so well.
That's amazing. I'm trying to pick, when you said that, I was trying to picture it, and I can see where it's possible to do that. I mean, yeah, of course it's possible to do that, but how did it feel in terms of your interpretation of the song? Did it change the way that you thought about how the song, what the song is about? Or I'm just curious if that, to hear it kind of reflected back in a different way, did that change the way that you thought about the song?
I thought his version was way cooler than ours, actually. But I thought that it is, at its root, at least what I meant this song to say was kind of punk. I was shooting for an anti-capitalist kind of anarchist, not necessarily in the extreme political sense of the word, but I was looking for kind of that punk feel with folk music, and he just took it and it made what the song's trying to say even more relevant and cool, I think. And I mean, if I could sneak a punk song into our shows, I would probably try to punkify it myself, but that's kind of hard to do with the two acoustic guitars. And
I mean, sure. If we're going to get into the lyrics, why not? I thought about kind of the multitude of interpretations of what the house could mean to different people, and I was thinking about, one, you could look at it as like a relationship. You can look at it as like political, which I think that was the original intent, but then also I was thinking about like climate change, like
exactly.
Although I feel like we only have one Earth. We can't really there's nowhere to build and go from here, at least yet, but I don't want us to hedge our bets on our ability to find another planet to ruin. I'm kind of curious, like, what does the house mean to you?
So I guess mostly society, I would say, and that encompasses capitalist economy, politics, and just generally the way we treat people. So I was thinking about a lot of the lyrics in here have double meanings, and if I could just quickly go back to what you said about different meanings for it. When I brought this song to Dan, that is one of the things he pointed out, was like, this is cool because like it can be interpreted as a breakdown of a relationship, or people can put their own spin on it, and that's a really cool thing to happen with songs. And I think I always struggle to write less on the nose, struggle to say a thing without actually saying the thing. So I felt pretty proud of being able to accomplish that with this song. But there are a lot of double meanings in it. Like the windows are grimy, like you can't get a good vision of the world around you, and the ceiling is dropping, like our world's opportunities are becoming less, we're losing freedoms. And then the whole general rebuilding of equitable society without billionaires. And like, if you think about like neurodivergence, and wouldn't it be great if we had a society where neurodivergent people were celebrated for different ways of thinking, rather than trying to put everybody in little boxes and make them all act a certain way and be productive. And like, you know, you just start thinking about like, if I could rebuild human community and society the way I wanted, it would look very different from the world we live in right now. That's kind of where it went. So I was just thinking of our little world as a house. And obviously this past year in the United States has been pretty rough. I am scared to say something like, maybe we needed this to like open our eyes to how can we were, you just start looking at how things were bad, but we were comfortable, and now really nobody's comfortable except the billionaires. And how can we re-envision?
One of the reasons, okay, this seems like out of left field, but it lit up in my brain when you said, like, I don't want to say that it's good that this happened, or even remotely say that it is a catalyst for people to think of things differently. But I kept thinking of, you know, a World War II. The reason that the infrastructure in Europe, at least from like the electrical grid, is much better than the United States is because in World War II, it was bombed and they had to rebuild. And in that process of rebuilding, they actually built a better infrastructure. Mm-hmm. No one would want to go and say so far as that it's a good thing that they got bombed, because that's just cold. But the result was a better infrastructure and something better. The thing that I love about this metaphor of the house is that the way that you actually break down the verses, I feel like it has this strange linear pattern to me of, you know, you're describing this house and then talking about its functionality, and then talking about, or like, what is a house? What is a house to us? It's where we reside. It's where we live. But also there's a sense of like, you describe how that house is broken or unfunctioning. And as if, let me see if I've got this right. Like, the main purpose of a house is to be able to get into it and to be safe. But you're talking about the doors are all stuck and you can't get them open and the windows are grimy. And so it's like this idea of, you can't even get into the house that you can feel safe in or function in. And then even if you were to get into the house, you couldn't even look outside into the world. Like, all of the broken, all of the functions within what a house is are broken. I don't know. As I said, like, it's almost like this sense of, sorry to ramble, but like almost this sense of like introspection of like, well, this, and this. Well, that shouldn't be. It shouldn't function like this. We don't have to live like this. We don't have to be like this. Like, maybe just get rid of it, start over. But I kind of wish too, like, you should have a companion piece. I'd love to hear like how you would envision. I'm sorry to put a huge burden on you.
Song prompts are great. I love it.
But like, how would you rebuild this house? I would love to hear kind of even a positive sound. I don't usually suggest, I don't usually say that to people, like, oh, you know what, this song needs its counterbalance, you know? There's so many things about it that just make me think of the functionality of a house, and also like halfway through the second verse, it's like the foundation is rotting. You know, what do people usually say is, well, you know, the house is terrible, but at least the foundation's good, right? Like, we can rebuild on what the foundation, which means you just build a house that's just like the house. Almost, you build a house that's just like the house that you had, because the foundation is still good. I'm curious about your thought process in terms of, I'm kind of bringing that back. Like how did you think about like rolling out these ideas? It does feel somehow linear, and I don't know if you were intending, but it kind of comes out that way to me.
I think that is a product of I do tell very linear stories. And so like as you're adding more into, like you start with an idea, and as you add more, like some things probably did move around perhaps. If I had a perfect world, maybe we would have talked about the foundation first, because that's the first step, right? But you don't really think about the foundation until you're in there. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say.
You can't find out about the foundation until you've torn away the other parts, or that everything else is desiccated away.
Yeah. And everything in this song was just me basically thinking about, like literally thinking in my head, picturing us all living in this house that's falling apart, thinking about the foundation being like the foundation of this whole country, and how we came here trying to escape religion, and then like, or an oppressive government, and then immediately making religion a very important part of our society, probably a more oppressive religion than the one we tried to escape from. And here we are with an oppressive government, far more oppressive than the one, well, it's at least not any less oppressive than the one we were trying to escape from. And like everything is a double meaning, like loose boards in the floor is people slipping through the cracks of the systems and of society, and people going hungry in a country where we have such a big multitude of food, those kind of things. And I had to slip maggots in there too.
Sure. Yeah. No, I know. That's it's funny, like that of course, that is the last part of the second verse, or sorry, how do I say that? Whatever. I'll say that better.
Second stanza.
Yeah, second stanza. Like, it seems like that's kind of the thing that clinches it, right? Like, it's just like, okay, now we're just putrid. We're this kind of gross roaches and maggots. Of course, I always think, whenever I hear roaches, although nobody wants roaches in their house, but the roaches are also the ones that somehow survive through everything. And maggots somehow, obviously, whatever. We have a very negative thought about that, but I was just thinking about how the roaches, they encroach, but then it's like they continue to survive and proliferate, and just how do you get rid of them once it's infested? So once you had written this, and then I want to say you've given the music to Dan, and you have Dan doing the lead vocals. How do you feel about someone else how do I say that better? Someone using your words and melody in a song that you've written. How has that changed? Because that's a really interesting dynamic. Like, you are the writer, but once you give it to someone else to perform, there's going to be the influence of that person and their style that comes out. And so I'm always curious about the change that happens once that element or that new person works with it. I can sometimes I can hold on too tightly to the way I thought it should be done. This song in particular, like even listening back to that version right now that we listened to at the very beginning, and that was just a little demo, a one-shot demo that we did for, we're going to have some friends play percussion and bass on our new album that we're working on. And so that was just a quick recording for that. And I would like to see this song like have the ends of the lines chopped off a little, like more staccato-y, I guess, on the ends. And I think why that happens is that we start harmonizing, and then like it's really hard to cut yourselves off when you're harmonizing. Right. But like, I don't think this is much different from the original version that I did where I sang it. As far as the structure of it, I think Dan has added a few little, what is the word I'm looking for, where you change from one note to the other during an actual syllable of a word. Melisma?
That might be it. I don't know.
But where it's one syllable and like, then multiple notes.
Like that, right? So he puts some of those in there, and sometimes I'll be like, don't do that. I don't like that. And then like, so he'll stop doing it, and I'll be like, wait, now it's boring. I guess we should go back to doing that.
When you said the staccato part, like I thought about, first part that I was thinking about is the doors are all stuck. And then it kind of goes up a little bit, but it's kind of word painting, right? In some ways where it's like, there's that, it's stuck. It doesn't stop. But it's interesting to hear the difference in style that are kind of formed what this song is. Now is the part where I'm going to tell you my favorite part of the song. And I mean, there's a lot of parts that lyrically I like. I'm going to go broad and then I'm going to go very specific. But like broadly, I think, even though you mentioned that the chords are easy, I think that there's enough moments of variation that I feel bring some energy. And the specific part that I like a lot is it's the beginning of the verse 2, and the rhythm, the guitar has kind of this more forceful staccato and not very much strumming. It's more of, I'm just going to say it's very forceful, but because it's like that we neglected our work. And I was thinking about what is the work that we should have been doing. And I feel like that stanza of that first part of that verse 2 has that rhythmic quality. It's like kind of to catch that attention of like, hey, there was work to be done and we should have been doing it. At this point, to me, there's even this sense of like sadness that I get because I'm like, well, what can we even do? I mean, there's a helplessness there because it's like, not to say that we are without fault because in some ways we've inherited this, but also have we done enough work to continue to improve it? And even if we did do that work, would it have been enough? To me, that's a constant thought that I have. It's a thought that I have often. The whole idea the foundation is rotting. Now we're going to get into the gross of the mildew and mold and roaches and maggots. But like, that feels like the termination. We have no recourse, but we have to tear it down. It's like, that's it. You're basically calling it. You're saying this house is done. I feel like this is the crux of that song. Like, this is the point, and now let's think about what we need to do moving forward. So to me, that's why it's my favorite part of the song. I'm just curious, what's your favorite part of the song?
I think same place, a little bit further on for me. My favorite line is, took over our home while we scrolled on our tablets, because I like the way that works both ways, even if you don't think about this as a political or protest song or a song about everything. You know, you can think about it as a relationship. Like, our relationship died because we are just sitting on the couch scrolling on our phones. Phone didn't rhyme with maggots, so that's why it's tablets. And I do agree with you that we did inherit a lot of the problems. It's become very obvious to me lately that I inherited my worldview, and like, I feel like I'm always learning new ways to look at things, even at my very ripe old age. And if you open your eyes, you can be challenged to think about things differently than you always thought of them, and never even knew that there was any other way to look at it until somebody opens your eyes to that. So that last line is just kind of a driving home that we just let this happen without even realizing that I couldn't have envisioned how bad things could get. I don't need to rehash the things that are happening in this country right now, because I'm sure we all read them on Reddit or the news or whatever. I write a lot of wake-up call songs, I think. I write a lot of very lecture-y songs, lecturing myself as well as people in general. That's just kind of my favorite line, because it's just a final. And yeah, this is all our fault because we just sat there and watched TV, and it's a lot of personal responsibility and hopefully causing others to feel some personal responsibility to make things better. And I think it's just really, hopefully, an eye-opener to people that there's even a problem, because it's hard when life's good for me. It's hard to think about other ways that you could live where it's not so great.
Why did you pick this song to be the song you wanted to talk about today?
I think because I like the message of it. I like that Dan sings it. I think that it's one of Dan's favorite songs that I've written. And Dan does write songs too. I should point out that we have songs that Dan has written. I'm not the only songwriter. We have probably not got any songs that we co-wrote at this point, but I think all of our songs are a little bit co-written, in that the other of us has a little bit of say in changing some lyrics sometimes, or changing a chord here or there, or arranging. Definitely the arranging part is something we both do together. But I think that this song just filled most boxes because Dan doesn't sing as much as I do on the songs. And so this one had a little of both of us in it, I think, and probably is up there for being at least one of our favorite songs and has a message that I wanted to talk about.
Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, of course, Michelle, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venues, past or present?
So for playing, my favorite venue to play at is Channing Murray. We do a little open mic listening room thing there called the Soirée Musicale, and it's a single mic and a very quiet room full of people listening very intently to your music, and you can hear a pin drop, and it's an amazing room to hear yourself, to hear as a duo. We can hear each other. It's amazing.
And so that takes place in the chapel, right?
Yes.
Such an underrated space, I think, in terms of just the sound. And anyway, sorry, my 2 cents.
Yeah. From a community perspective, I really love the space. We found our people there. We've made so many friends, so many awesome musicians that I'll just give one example. Can I give an example?
You can do whatever you'd like.
So for one example, Emily the band, Emily plays at open mic and has become one of our friends. And first time I saw her live, I was just enchanted with her and her music and the fact that we're buds now and I get to hear her play one-on-one and she gets to hear me play and she likes our music. We're talking about someday singing together. And
FYI, if you wanted to look up Emily Antonacci of Emily the Band, her episode is episode 67.
A lot of that happens collaborating at the Space open mic. Sometimes we'll have a full band with Mike on drums and Jake on bass, and we've made some friends who have sung along with us on our own songs, and we've been backup singers for other people, and that's just really super fun to have a bunch of music friends. And I think the amazing thing about the Space and that group there is that everybody is so supportive of each other, and we're just like, there's no competing, there's no, like, everybody's just happy for everybody's success and rooting for everybody, and I think it's really amazing.
If you're wondering, Jake Fava of Booth Blues is episode 74. It's a remarkable event in itself, just because everybody kind of comes with their own vibe, and I feel like so many different like types of music and expression and like things that people want to bring to share, that it's like it's the variety hour. I mean, and I appreciate that openness, and I appreciate that whatever it is, it's celebrated. And I think more people need to be able to see that just in their own music development, so that they realize, it's like, this is my voice, this is the thing that I create, and it's okay, and I think that doesn't always happen in every music scene and music communities. I just appreciate that in that sense it exists and it exists there. Mm-hmm. So
I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Rose Bowl, because that was where we first performed in front of people, and one of our favorite folks in the whole world is someone we met there our friend Clayton, who we very much remember coming up to us after the first or second time that we performed there and asking us who we were, and just saying that he really enjoyed our little 15-minute time on stage. And that was that was before the pandemic, when we were just starting playing together. And I think that was something that buoyed us into feeling like maybe we could do something with this. And I think we kept doing it because of that very early encouragement.
Clayton Burke Deering is episode 111. You may know him from his self-titled solo project, as well as his other solo project, Neon Gravel.
It's just a little bit of a different vibe. There's much more jamming and that sort of collaboration there that I think we aren't super comfortable with yet. Like, getting on stage and leading a jam is something neither of us feel like we're super comfortable with right now. And like taking a solo is always a little scary too. So we're working our way up to hopefully feeling more comfortable.
That's really interesting to hear, because I think about, not only is it important to find a space where you're comfortable and you feel good about the music that you write or perform, but that you also can find a space that may even challenge you to be better, which I think is, that's very important as well. So that kind of leads me into my question is like, what do you think makes a good music community?
I do think it's finding people, even if they're not in the same genre that you are, when you're collaborating with someone and they don't do the same kind of music you do, it brings a new, fresh kind of, you're like creating something that neither of you could have created on your own. I think that's really cool when you mix like chocolate and peanut butter together, and you get a whole new candy that didn't exist before, Same thing with music. Like, I think since being at the space, maybe some of my songs have become like a little more emo leaning sometimes, because some of the people that I am most in awe of on that stage write in a certain kind of way that just makes me think about different ways to say things too. That sense of there's room for all of us at this table. And the thing that I love so much about that is that I think there are people there who are really rooting for us, even though they may have never heard music that sounds like ours before and probably never would have thought that they would enjoy listening to that kind of music. I guess the total lack of competition between people and lack of comparing everybody's journeys. I don't see people acting jealous of other people for getting opportunities. Everybody seems really excited for everybody else and eager to help them and eager to collaborate. And those are what makes this community. I just don't even know how it could be better. I can't envision how it could be better.
Sometimes competition can make people want to do better, but I think that admiration can do exactly the same thing. If you admire what somebody does, you can want to do better. I do think that one of the things that makes this scene really great is that admiration over competition.
I think with musicians, I may be way off base here because I'm really basing this on myself. Competition is not a motivator for me. In music, at least, in things that I don't know that I can be good at. So I will say someone whose guitar playing I admire came up recently and gave me a compliment on my guitar playing. And that compliment strangely instead of making me feel like I could rest on my laurels from here on out, I've got a compliment from this person who is leaps and bounds ahead of me as far as I'm concerned. That made me want to be better. Whereas I think if someone came up to me and said, your guitar playing is a little like, you could be so good if you just did this or something like that. I think that attitude makes me feel like I'm doing the best I can. And then I am definitely more of a carrot than a stick person, I guess, is what I'm saying. So for me, that works. And I like to think that I'm correct in assuming that as creatives, musicians can be a lot like that, especially in a local scene like this where we are not necessarily trying to make it big. And I don't know what other people's goals are, so I don't know if that's necessarily true because I don't discuss their future goals with them. But I think when you're not trying to become famous from it, I think that's where the competition comes in, when you feel like there are only a certain number of spots that we can all occupy. And so maybe some people are competing and I'm just not aware of it because that's not my thing. But locally, it seems like there's plenty of room for all of us. I don't know that competition in this particular thing. We'll talk in a moment about competition in other things, but in music, at least, it is not a motivator for me. It would shut me down.
Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, Michelle, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
I'm an obsessive GeoGuessr player.
Okay. Please tell me what that is.
It is an online game that basically drops you into a place on Google Maps, Street View, and you compete with other players to try to get as close as you can to where you are. It's like worldwide.
Physically close to
no,
it?
No.
I'm okay. I'm trying to picture this. This is why
okay. Let me start over with this. Okay. So you're on it online on a game, and it'll have a little countdown, and then it'll bring up a Google Street View on your screen. You can play no move or no move pan zoom, but I usually play moving, so I can drive around in the Google Street Car just like you would on Google Maps. And as soon as I think I know where I am, I put my little plonky thing on the map, my little guy, and I hit guess, and then my opponent has 10 seconds to... It usually works the other way, that my opponent guesses first, and then I have to scramble to get my guess in.
What I'm trying to picture. Okay, so give me an example of like a recent one that you did, or hopefully a successful one that you did.
Well, we play it's 5 rounds, and Dan and I play team duels, but I play a lot when Dan's not around too. So I basically just go in, and like it'll be just 5 random places in the world. So maybe there's a lot of Indonesia, there's a lot of Romania. Russia's terrible when you get Russia. There's only I'm terrible at Russia. So figuring out the country, I'm pretty good at figuring out the country. Not so great at figuring out where I am in the country.
I'm just curious about like your context clues within the picture that you're seeing. Like, what is it that is it like you can see a marquee or something that has or a road sign or something like that, or like I'm curious about what you're visually seeing.
It's great when you're on like a highway in the country. If you get a highway number, you have to know the country. And because in Europe, the major highway system is all E-2-digit number thing, right? So if you're on E68, you have to know it's E68 in Sweden and not in Germany, right? You get that from vegetation, architecture, things like utility poles are different between countries, and bollards, these little cylinders or little sticks by the side of roads that we don't really have in America. So learning bollards was all the different bollards for different countries. And the Google car is different in some countries. There are some countries where you know instantly where it is because the Google car looks a certain way. Like Ghana has these luggage racks sticking out, and the left side front one has black electrical tape around it. And like in Nigeria, you're usually followed by a police car. In Kenya, you've got this little snorkel thing on the front of the truck because they drove through a bunch of water and stuff. And in Mongolia, you have the snorkel and this whole tent system because there's like Mongolia is a huge country and there's like very little civilization, so they had to stop and camp all the time between getting from one civilization to the next part of civilization, and yeah, stuff like that. And then I also learned I don't speak any languages. I took French, a lot of French. I can sort of read French, but I've learned to recognize almost every language that's in GeoGuessr. Sometimes I get some of those like Slovenia, Croatia, and those.
Yeah.
They all have lots of J's and C's put at the end of words and stuff, but I've learned to recognize a lot of different European languages, some Cyrillic. Of course, South America is all Spanish, except for Brazil, which is Portuguese. So you learn to recognize the difference between Portuguese and Spanish. And then in Brazil, they have phone codes, area codes, a little 2-digit number in front of the phone number, and that will tell you kind of pretty close to, I would say, like maybe the size of a state. It will tell you what section of the country you're in based on that little phone code. So
your answer is like actually like a city and a state, or just or not a city and a state. I'm sorry, city and like a country, or yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Oh gosh, no, I am absolutely fascinated how, in some ways, it's like you've learned like an additional meta language to visual cues. Is that even right? But I'm like, when you're talking about the poles or the the types of cars or all those things, like that seems like that's the only thing that you can learn by just observing and getting better at it. Or is there a chat board that everyone's
no, there's a World Cup for this, and then the people that play in that are so far ahead of me. I will never be as good. Like you can show them a picture of anything and they will tell you exactly what country it is, even if all you see is some trees or a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. And Dan will tell you, we can land in a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, and probably half the time I'll be like, oh yeah, this is Estonia for sure. Like those white flowers and those trees and this exact shade of dirt. That's like, I don't even know how I can tell you it's Estonia. I've just played this so much. I'm like, yeah, maybe Lithuania, but this is definitely, like.
There are so many questions that we do not have time for, but honestly, I've never heard of this, but I'm just going to have to ask, how did you get into this to begin with?
I don't remember.
Okay.
To be honest. Maybe Dan knows.
That's wow.
I probably watched it. I probably actually found it on Twitch. I probably watched someone play it and was like, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so the other game that we play on Saturday mornings through Twitch, I met some cool dudes in Russia, and we have this little channel, this alt channel that I made, and we play this game called Geo Bingo on Saturday mornings on Twitch, and that's a community game, so our chat can play with us. I recommend that you stop by and hang out with us sometime. Geo Bingo is where you don't have to pick a country, but we do. We pick a country and we say, okay, we're going to do it in this country. And then we make this list of things that you have to find. And then you go in through Google Maps interface again and drive around until you find, like today it was find a butterfly. You don't have to find a live butterfly, but like a butterfly in a store or on a purse or in a picture or whatever. So we have like 10 things you have to go find in this particular country, which gets fun sometimes because there aren't a lot of Cadillacs in Kenya, for instance. But
wow, I don't even know where to begin. That's crazy. It's kind of beautiful, and also I'm slightly sad too, because I think about, we have so many things right at our fingertips that should be bringing us closer together and understand more about each other, and yet it seems like those connections are the things that tend to tear people apart. Go on social media, you'll see people that will just, their whole goal is to be a troll, and it's like, how do you live like that? Anyway, these are my issues that I just cannot get over. It's like we should be understanding more about each other and not standing more on our hill to die on, which I don't, anyway. But I think about, you said meeting with not meeting, but like connecting with people in Russia. It's more about like, how are you similar that you connect on these things?
Yeah. Well, they were both musicians, so I mean, they still are.
they were.
They still, yeah. Part of the reason for making that channel was because Twitch doesn't pay them anymore since the sanctions, and so this was a way for them to keep twitching. And basically, Twitch pays me, and then I send the money to a friend in Germany, and then she makes sure it gets to Russia, because Germany's like so far the one country that can still send money to Russia through some kind of
non-American, right?
Yeah, there's some way to electronically send money there, which we can't do from here. So basically, it was just a way for them to be able to still keep streaming. I was streaming there a little bit on my own too in the beginning, but kind of gave that up. But yeah, we still do this Saturday gaming thing, playing Geo Bingo, and I don't remember how that started either. But I do think that GeoGuessr has changed me in positive ways, because I think we all have an idea of how things are in Europe and how things are in Africa and how things are in Russia. And I'm actually like driving around these places in the Google car, seeing how the rest of the world lives, how much they're like us and how much they're different. And like, it's just a beautiful thing, I think, and has really opened my eyes to how different people live and thrive or not thrive. You see a lot of not thriving going on. It would be hard to see all that not thriving and not have your heart be a little bit broken and a little bit thinking about ways maybe you could make things better.
Well, Michelle, thank you for being on the show and telling me about your song Tear It Down, the Champaign-Urbana music scene, and finding your spot in the open mics and the Hootenanny, the Champaign-Urbana music community, and of course your favorite non-musical things. So thank you so much for coming out and telling me all about it.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Michelle Darling reminding you great music is out there. Go and find it where you live.
it's a wrap.
Champagne is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
South Beaker on the inside.
Phone didn't rhyme with maggots, so that's why it's tablets.